Okay, today we're going to talk about lenses. I originally meant to do this as a single video, but it's taking a really long time, and you know YouTube has a time limit. So today we're just going to talk about fixed versus zoom lenses, and then for the next consecutive weeks we're going to talk about each different kinds of lens. So we're going to talk about telephoto, macro, etc., etc. So let's talk about zoom versus fixed. Basically, each lens has a focal length. It's if you want to read a long and complicated description of focal length, go ahead and look at Wikipedia because it's relatively difficult for me to explain it because I barely understand it. But basically, the very gist of it is a focal length of a lens tells you how far your subject can be, and you can still take a relatively good shot. And that's a horribly bad explanation of it, and it's not even 100% accurate. But just think of it this way: the longer your focal length, like the farther away the subject can be, and you can still get a relatively good shot, as if they were relatively close by. And this will make more sense next week as I talk about the different lenses. But anyway, I just wanted you to know when a lens says 50 millimeter, 100 millimeter, 200 millimeter, that measurement is called a focal length. And a fixed lens, basically, there's only one focal length. So the lens that I use 98% of the time is my 50 millimeter. It's a single fixed lens. It doesn't have a zoom, so there's no way for me to change how close or far away a particular subject might look. If I want to get a closer up picture of the subject, instead of being able to zoom in, I have to physically move closer to the subject, and then it'll allow me to take a picture that was closer up, or physically move farther away, etc. So there's a fixed lens, and then if you want to see an example of a zoom lens, here's an example. This is my wide angle, which we're going to talk about later. But a zoom lens has this little thing in there, which allows you to zoom in and out. And it has a range of a focal length. So instead of the focal length being 50, 30, 20, it actually gives you a range. And here's the range for this one. It is actually 10 to 22. It's relatively hard to see because numbers are bunched up, but that's basically 10 right there, 12, 14, 17, 20, 22. They're pretty close to each other, so it looks like it's 2022, but it's actually 22. So this goes from 10 to 22. And if you see the white bar there, that tells you where I'm right now. So as I move this, it'll actually move. See, now it's at 20, now it's at 22. It's actually the top part that moves, not the white, but nonetheless, the white, it gives you an indication of where you are, what your current focal length is. Alright, so that's a zoom lens. A zoom lens allows you to take pictures of a wider range without having to move your body. So if you zoom in, you're literally zooming into the subject and zooming out, just like in a video. So let me tell you briefly, you really ideally want to get a fixed lens instead of a zoom lens. Fixed lenses are generally a lot more expensive than zoom lenses. They contain a lot more glass, and they're made a lot more professionally. The best example I can think of is, think of one of those all-in-one machines. You know, if you have a fax machine, scanner, printer all-in-one. It tends to be that none of those three are actually perfect, or the best scanner you'll ever find, the best fax machine you'll ever find, because they're trying to take like little pieces and bits of three different machines and create one machine that actually does all three. Chances are it's not going to do all three as perfectly as individual machines might have been able to do. So if you're, let's say, for whatever reason, if you need a professional grade scanner because you scan images and you need to blow them up and have as many options as a really perfect scanner might give you, you're not going to find those same options or the same criteria in an all-in-one machine. And that's sort of the difference between zoom and fixed that I can think of, is if a zoom lens is trying to be multiple things at the same time, which means it's great and it's, you know, at being average and allowing you to do multiple things at the same time, but it's pretty sucky at being able to do one particular thing really well. Okay, whereas a fixed lens is actually not going to be able to give you any zoom, but it's going to be perfect at that distance, and it's going to be the best lens you can get. It'll allow you to have a low aperture, and allow you to have relatively good glass in it, which means it'll take really sharp and good photos. So the thing is, the fixed lenses are generally very, very expensive, and if you tend to find yourself in situations where you have to zoom in and out a lot, where you're taking like landscape shots and portrait shots all the time together, it might be kind of a pain because you have to take your lens off and put another lens in continually, and that gets annoying. So there are a couple of cases where I think a zoom lens might be worth it. The most common one, honestly, being the price. Even photographers, you'll see, instead of having a zoom lens, they will actually have multiple cameras, each camera containing a different lens on it, so that they can just go to the right camera with the correct lens if they want to take a picture, because you will get much better, much sharper photos with a fixed lens, most of the time. There's exceptions, of course. Alright, so that's the basic difference between fixed and zoom, and I personally recommend that if you can afford it, always buy a fixed lens. That's it. We'll talk more about the different kinds of lenses starting next week. If you have any questions, as always, you can leave messages and I'll be happy to answer them.